Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another lecture. So this lecture is very important because in this lecture we are going to cover three very important areas of the risk management. Do you remember in last class I told you about the steps which we take to manage the risk, and it was the first number one, commitment from the senior management or the top positions. Then you have to make a risk committee. Then you do the risk assessment. In risk assessment you first identify and list down your risk, and then you assess their likelihood and their impact. Based on the likelihood and the impact you rank them, right? You do the ranking, and then after that you take the you make the strategies and take the mitigating actions for them. All right. And I told you that whatever the actions you have planned, whatever the ranking you have done, whatever the assessment you have done, you document all these things into a formal document. That was the risk register. Remember? And today we are going to cover the risk register number one. And also we will cover the TARA framework, that is the framework which we use to make the strategies against the risk, strategies to mitigate the risk, that how and what course of action we are going to take against which risk. And then finally, when we discussed about the ranking of the risk, remember that we discussed that based on the likelihood and based on the impact we are going to rank them as per their impacts, right? So there is a model, there is a concept that we use to rank the risk, and that is called the heat map. So these are the three major topics that we are going to cover in today's class. So let's start from the risk register. So risk register, there is a definition. Let us just read it out because already you know that what is the purpose of the risk register. And now we are going to discuss that what are the contents of the risk register and how you make it, right? So risk register is a formal document which lists all the risks which a company faces along with its possible impact and probability. The list help to prioritize risk and to decide which risk need most attention. Right? This is what the purpose is. This is what we have been doing into our steps. So after doing all these steps, now you have to document them somewhere, right? Somewhere that everyone can see it. Somewhere that you can also recall it, right? So the register can then be used as an objective and consistent basis to manage risk, committing sufficient resources and as necessary and providing a holistic view of how risk is being managed throughout the organization. Because in risk register, all the possible risks are mentioned with their likelihood, with their impact, with their probability, with their course of action, all the mitigating action which you have decided, everything is mentioned there, right? So the risk register content, so number one thing is the description of the risk. You first will write down the description. For example, the risk is about the technological risk, that the technology will go outdated, flood, storm, default by the customers, quality issues, legal risk, health and safety risk, market risk, business probity risk, your reputational risk, brand risk, fraud risk, all kind of risk. So you have to write down the specific description which will define that what this risk or what this raw is all about. All right. Then you will mention the impact, whether the impact is high, whether it is low, or whether it is medium, right? Based on your assessment. Likelihood means that the chances of this event or this risk of materializing, right? High, low, or medium. Then the priority, based on the impact and the likelihood, you will mention the priority, that this risk needs the immediate attention, or you can defer or delay this risk for the time being, or is this risk that you will look at the least or at the most end thing. All right. So this is what your priority thing is going to look, because this is the ranking column. This is the ranking column. And then the owner. Owner means that who is the person responsible for looking after this risk. Who is the top management person, who is the owner, who is accountable for this risk. And you know what? In board of directors, we have different kinds of director. We have finance director, marketing director, IT director, HR director, we have operational directors. So different kinds of director we have, right? So whatever area there is a risk, whatever, so we what we check that from which area the risk pertains to, from which area of it, from which department the risk consists or risk belongs to. So based on that, we make that director or maybe the senior person of the management the owner of that risk. For example, if there is a IT related risk, we will make the IT director owner of this risk, or maybe the head of IT. That would be the owner, right? Let's say, for example, there is a risk related to the loss of customers, that the company may, or maybe the company would not be able to retain its customer. So that risk relates to the marketing director or the marketing department or the sales department. So you are going to make the head of sales or head of marketing owner of this risk, or maybe the marketing director. So these are going to the person who are responsible to look after this risk, to evaluate the impact and the likelihood, and also prioritize them. And whatever the mitigating actions which you have decided against these risks, these are the people who are responsible to make sure that these actions or these strategies are followed and implemented as they are planned. Are you getting my point? And similarly, we have then the frequency of the review, because as we know that risk management, it is not the one-off activity. It's a continuing process. You have to do it maybe for monthly basis, on quarterly basis, or on semi-annually basis, right? So what whenever you are doing, you have to mention that at what frequency you will revisit this risk. You will revisit and see that whether there is any change in the impact, whether there is a change in the likelihood level, right? Maybe previously it was medium, but now it has become high. Previously the likelihood was of the flood, maybe the likelihood was medium, but right now, due to the global warming, due to the change in the nature, change in the environment, the risk of floods has increased. So your likelihood is going to be high now. So you have to revisit it and update the risk accordingly. So you have to mention that at what frequency you will review, after how many days, how many months you are going to review this risk and update with whatever column you need to update, right? You will update the priorities, or maybe you will check that the mitigating actions which you planned earlier, they are not relevant, they are not effective. Maybe through internal audit you got to know that these mitigating actions, they are not effective, they are not proper, or maybe the staff is not following them properly. So when you will review them, you will update it here that now the new mitigating actions, new safeguards, new controls are required to be planned. And accordingly, when you will plan the new safeguards, control, or the mitigating action, you will document them here. So this is the risk register. And you know what? How the question is going to be asked in the exam? Maybe they can tell you that identify the risk, and make the risk register. They are not going to ask you the definition of the risk register. Please don't think this. So they are going to give you the scenario, and you will be required to construct the risk register. Number one. Number two, maybe they will ask you that this is the risk register which the, let's say, accountant has made, CFO has made, and the CFO is going to present it to the board. Review this risk register, find out the issues, error, shortcomings into this risk register. So when you can do this, only you can do this when you have a good understanding on the contents of the risk register, that what are the things that will be written or that would be documented in the risk register and how they are documented. For example, there would be the case that there is a risk which is mentioned. For example, the risk about the let's say you are a transportation company, and there is a risk that maybe through your transport vehicle someone got hit, right? Someone got accident, right? And the impact is written low. So you will comment that no, this is wrong. The impact is high because if someone is dead, if someone is hit by your car, that person is going to sue you. That person is going will go to the court and will ask for the damages compensation. So that is how you are going to review the risk register which is already made. So there would be these column would be filled, and you have to find out that if there is something wrong, if there is something not proper, or if there is something not appropriate, you have to make the comment that this is not appropriate and it should be in this way what we have studied in the class by Sir Musaddiq, right? Obviously you're not going to mention Sir Musaddiq thing, but you're going to mention that this is something which is to be done in this way in the risk register. So if you are clear till this, now let us move to the next topic, that is a very easy and the interesting topic, that is the Tara framework. So the Tara framework deals with the four option. It gives you the four option: T for transfer, A for avoid, R for reduce, and A for acceptance. So these are the four option. Tara framework tells you that in any situation, whatever the safeguard you are going to apply, or whatever the mitigating activity, or whatever the strategy which you are going to make, it will be among these four options. Whatever you name it, I will link it with all four headings. So Tara framework tells you that either you can transfer the risk, either you can transfer the risk, that for example you transfer the risk to the third party, like for example insurance. Let me give you an example. For example, at your factory or at your production plant, there are many laborers who are working there is a workforce who is working. So there is a chance that any one of them get injured, right? They would get injured. So who will pay for their medication, who will pay for their treatment, and may god forbid if someone got physically disabled for the lifetime, right? Who is going to give them the monthly allowances? It's a huge cost, right? Or maybe it's because of your company's negligence that the person is now disabled. So they are going to sue you, and maybe they could ask for the millions of dollars penalty. How are you going to pay this? It's a risk, right? So what company does, they purchase the insurance cover. They go for the insurance option, and they insure this risk that whenever if some employee got injured, if the employee will get injured, and the company has to pay something, the company will pay, and then the company will get it reimbursed from the insurance company or the insurance provider because they have insured it. So this way you have transferred the whole risk to the insurance company. All right. And similarly, if for example your company is giving all the employees the medical allowances, that whatever the medical treatment you need to do for, like, normal routine medical treatment, you go to the hospital, have it, and then give us the slip, and we will repay you. All right. So there is a risk that for example if one of your employee got severe disease, and it needs a huge operation to be treated. All right, the employee is required to be operated, and the operation cost is in millions of dollars. So how are you going to arrange it? It is going to create a huge risk for you, right? It's a huge risk. So again, you will purchase a insurance cover that whatever the reimbursement or the expenses which are done by the employees will demand it from the company, and the company will pay it and then get it reimbursed by the insurer. So in this way, you transfer the risk. All right. Then we have the avoidance. So the avoidance means is that you avoid the risk from the very first place. That means that you don't do that activity. For example, if I ask you that you have to do a one wheeling on bicycle, and if you will do this, I will give you the reward of $10,000. So the thing is that there would be some person who will say that no, I'm not going to take this risk, right? I'm going to avoid it. I'm going to avoid it by not participating in such kind of activities, in such kind of stunts. So how the person managed or you know, how the person solved this risk or mitigated this. The person mitigated it by avoiding the activity and said that I'm not going to do this thing. But believe me, in business there are many cases, many scenarios in which you cannot avoid it. Like for example, when I said that your workers could get injured, your workers could get ill, there can be accidents, there can be the bad debts or the default by the customers, there could be the issues in your technology, there could be the issue that your technology goes down, any kind of issue could happen, right? So if you have to do the business, these are the things which will come naturally into it, and you cannot avoid it unless you stop doing the business. So that is why this avoidance strategy is has a very limited use. It is not practical in all the scenarios. Like in many scenarios, I would say 98% of the scenarios you cannot use the avoidance strategy. But that doesn't mean that when in exam, if you think that the avoidance strategy is appropriate, you will think like sir has said that it is the 98% chances that it is not applicable and we are not going to write it whether we are correct or not. No, 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 don't need to think like this. I'm just giving you the idea that avoidance is more often not applicable, because obviously avoiding means going away from the battle ring, going away from the market, going away from the business. So that is why you have to think about it, right? So if it is something extra, if it is something unnecessary, yes, then you can avoid it. For example, you are running a very successful business in your country. It's a very successful business. You are earning a lot of profits, but you are having the idea that how about if we would start our business into another country, into the global market. Then again it carries a risk, because you have no idea about the global market, you have no idea about the laws and regulation, the customers, the suppliers, everything about the global market you don't know. So there is a huge risk that maybe your investment would be waste, right? So yes, you can now avoid this strategy. If your home market is so good and you don't need to do anything extra, why you are doing this kind of stunt, right? So this is what the avoidance thing is. And then we have the reduction. Reduction means that limit exposure to risk, or limit the exposure to risk, or decrease the effect of risk should it crystallize. So that means that you apply the limit that you will only take the risk to the certain level as per your risk appetite. Remember, the first lecture we studied about the risk appetite. So that is the risk appetite thing, that you will reduce the risk to your risk appetite. For example, if risk is, let me make a diagram. So risk is here, your appetite is here, right? Your appetite is here. So you will reduce the risk till here, and you will say that the residual risk, we are accepting it. We are accepting the risk. How you can reduce the risk? You can reduce the risk through applying the safeguards, through applying the controls, internal controls, which we have studied, right? And through making the policies and procedures, because we always say that the precaution is better than cure. So you apply the precaution, like I told you about that. If there is a risk that you will fail in exam, so what you will do to reduce this risk? You will do hard work, you will study hard, you will study properly, you will do revision, you will do practice. Similarly, your risk is that if you go out, you will do the accident. Apply the safeguards, reduce the risk, reduce the impact by applying the airbags, emergency brake, seat belt, follow all the rules and regulations, drive carefully, go to the safe route, right? So these are the options which you can apply. And similarly in business, like the default example of the customer, check the background of the customer and only give the credit to that customer to the limit which you can which the customer can pay, and which you can, I would say, you can sustain, right? And then the acceptance means that the accept the risk which may occur and choose to deal with the consequences of the risk if it does occur, used where adverse impacts of the risk is minimal. So that means that accepting is the strategy in two options. For example, either you reduce the risk, right, reduce to the acceptable level, and below the acceptable level the risk is remaining, you accept it, you accept the remaining risk. And in some situation there is a risk, but the impact is very low. But the impact is very low. For example, there is a customer who is purchasing from of a very little quantity from you, and you don't need to, you know deploy too many resources in checking the customer's background, maintaining its data history and everything, because the customer is only purchasing a penny from you, right? And you don't need to incur too much cost. So you will say that we will accept the exposure of this customer even if that customer doesn't pay me anything. It's fine, I don't need, I don't care about it, right? So that is how you're going to evaluate it. If the negative consequences are too low, if too low for your business, you will say okay, accept the risk, we don't care about it, right? So this is how the Tara framework works, right? I hope that it is clear. And if it is clear, now let's move forward towards the heat map. So the heat map is very, very, very simple, right? Let me just make things easy for you. If you can see one thing, see in this column, this is the most dangerous area, because in risk map we have on x-axis the impact, on the y-axis we have the probability. So you plot the risk into the heat map based on their impact and based on their probability. All right, based on their impact and based on their probability. So those risks which have the high probability and also high impact, both are high. So they will be classified here. These are both high, right? And these are the most dangerous risks, and these are the risks which needs your immediate attention, all right, which needs the maximum efforts, maximum resources, so that they never occur. For example, legal compliances risk, maybe your license could be revoked, your reputational risk, your maybe market risk. So these are the things which can affect your business. And similarly, when one thing is high, one thing is high but the other thing is low or medium, one thing is high and the other thing is not high, one thing is high, one thing is high and the impact is medium. Again, let me explain you. See, if your impact is high but your probability is medium, impact is high but the probability is medium, it is this quadrant, right? And similarly, if your probability is high, if your probability is high and your impact is medium, so it is this quadrant, right? And that is what this heat map is telling you. Heat map is telling you that if there is some risk in which one thing, either probability or either impact, either probability or either impact, any of them is high but the other thing is below high, so it will be in the this quadrant. So this is the first and these are the second ranking quadrants, right? These are the second quadrant, second ranking quadrant. So these are the less risky or less important than this one, but again these are important because maybe either the probability is high or either the impact is high. Now then we have these quadrant, third quadrant. These are the third quadrant. So in third quadrant, what is the main thing? Main thing is that, see, if I talk about the impact thing. So for the impact, yes, let me remove this, clear this diagram for you so that you can understand this. So this was our first quadrant. These are the second quadrants like in the ranking, right? So if I talk about the other yellow quadrant, so these are, if I talk about the impact is here high but the probability is low, but the probability is low. Again, if I talk about the impact, it is medium and again it is medium. All right, so again it's a medium level. And if I talk about the impact, now the impact is low but the probability is high. So here in this quadrant, what is the thing? It is that if the probability is high, if the probability is high, so the impact is low. If the impact is low, then we say okay, that's a, you know, so level risk, it's something not that important. And also both things are medium, both things are medium, again, you know, loose type of risk. And then again, if the impact is high, so the probability is low, right? And again, let me clear this. Yes. So now I have cleared this thing again. So these are your first priority, these are your second priority, these are your second priority, these are your third priority. Why these are third priority? Because again, maybe in them, one, either of them, either one thing is high or either one thing is medium. So if one thing is medium and high, so that is why they are a bit important, not that much, but a bit important. And in the these I would say blue boxes, in blue boxes, if I talk about the thing that impact, Impact is medium. Impact is medium. Probability it is low. If the impact is low, probability is medium. So the thing is that in this, nothing is high. Nothing is high. So that is why these are our fourth priority. These are our fourth priority. So if you are required to place them into the risk heat map, you have to first list down. Let's say, for example, you will say one risk, two risk, three risk, four risk, right? There you will write description, impact, and probability. So based on the high, medium, low, you will place the risk here, right? And the strategy I'm just explaining you this thing that here nothing is high, and for them for this green it is the both low. The impact is low, probability is low. You will just say ignore this risk because this risk cannot do nothing to me. This risk is just ignorable. So that is what the risk heat map helps you in making the ranking of the risk into your risk register, into your risk management process. All right. So here our chapter ends, and I hope that I was able to explain each and every concept in detail. All right. In again, in case if you have any issues, any confusion, any query, you can always feel free. You can always feel free. You should always feel free to reach me out through WhatsApp. So take care of yourself. See you in the next lecture. Till then, Allah Hafiz.